Okay guys, so I'm just going to set up a new project, so in Maya. So let me go to C colon, thank you. So I'm going to set this, so Maya C drive. So I've just set it onto my C drive because Dropbox seems to go a bit odd. So create default workspace, that should happen. So I want to just make sure that the settings and the preferences are okay for Unreal. So Unreal 4, I want to just make sure that we've got everything set up. We start modeling to the correct metrics. So we've got centimeters set up, which is all good, lovely. Let's save those. I previously set this up. Y is up. I previously set this up, so it's set up because yes, I previously set it up. So if we go to display grid options, so this is a bit weird. So length and width 1000 units, that's the size of your grid. Grid lines every 10, so that matches the snapping elements within Unreal. So you can put it at 5, which means your grid will have a snapping point every 5 Unreal units, and subdivisions 1. Okay, so let's apply that and close. It's exactly the same as I said, I previously set it up, so there's no adjustments or alterations there. So let's get us started by making a small humanoid type character who's going to look suspiciously like a large green block. Okay, so making this small green humanoid. So if we go up to create polygon primitives, and we need to make sure interactive creation is on. I'll show you what that does in Uno Momentos. I want to make sure grid snap is set on, probably snap to points as well as your grid or your snapping options are here. So let's make a cube. So this gives you the option of making a shape anywhere basically, instead of automatically dropping a shape into the origin 000 point on your grid. So it's just a bit more convenient really. If we go to the modeling tools or even the attribute editor, so I'm just going, this is like the stack in 3ds Max, but these are called nodes, and if you have a look at the nodes, its height is 120 centimeters. So your average person, well, or so I'm told, your average person is 1.8 meters. Well, 50 is fine, 50 and 50, just for to give us a kind of humanoid. It's not a humanoid shape obviously, but it's the right size. So we want to make sure that we've got a pivot. So if you notice that when we try and move it, the pivot's at the center of this object. So if we, I don't know why this, I can access it from the rotate menu. I don't know why it's only from the rotate menu. It probably isn't. I'm new to Maya. But if we hold down D while you're in the rotate menu, you get access to your pivot points. And so at the minute I've got it on grid and I've got it on points, my snapping tool, so up here. So basically I can, it automatically, well not automatically, obviously you have to move your fingers, but it'll snap the pivot to either a grid point or a vertex point. So I've snapped it to the corner vertex, which means I can now snap that onto, well, let's just pressing space, let's just move into the top view. So we've got it snapped into the position on the grid in the top view. So let's have a look at the front view. Snapped into the grid on the front view. Let's have a look at the side view. So it just needs to move up one to get it onto the origin point. Yes, I know origin orthographic views cannot be tumbled. Yes, I know. Thank you. So we've got there. That's at the origin position. Let's just give that a nice colour. Let's assign new material. Let's give it a blin because we can, and let's give that a green colour. So green, you know, I usually put in green as the player character, and then red can become the enemy characters, just so we know where they are in the scene. So I'm going to be doing some traversal design. This, I've just scanned this in. It's not the greatest scan in the world, so I'm actually working from the picture that's sitting next to my monitor. But so I've given myself a move set. I've got sprint, jump, up and across, and jump and grab. Got a zip line, got shimmy, shimmy around the corner. Got an edge walk. You know, where you press yourself in against the wall and edge yourself along a ledge. Probably called ledge walk. Vault. So vaulting into windows, such like mantle is another term for that. Crouch for stealth games. Something climb, rope climb. So I was considering something like where you've got a rope that you can shimmy up, and a balance beam. So very much kind of staples of your average traversal game. So I'm going to do it in the style of medieval London or even medieval York. So you start, you can't really see too clearly, but you'll start down here. It starts with a run and a jump, so I'm effectively gating the player until they've learned how to jump. They've got to climb up and around a tower, then coming out. So basically I'm making them go through the tower, so that's kind of making traversal slightly more interesting. You could put a pickup in here, like if it's a thief style game, you could put the chest in here that you would pop open and steal the items out of. And then you come out of here, zip line, well, yeah, you zip line across here. Then you've got shimmy, so you're above a street here, so you've got some guards patrolling backwards and forwards, which will become clear when I build it. But it's quite nice to kind of give the player a feeling of empowerment as they're above the guards and looking down on them. So very common in games like Assassin's Creed and the new Thief game. So yeah, you shimmy across here, then balance beam, so that's giving you some kind of some jeopardy, so you feel as if you might fall down. You are no longer empowered, you are in fact scared. And then some more edging here, so I might adjust that because that's quite boring. I think we're going to have to put a shimmy in here. Oh look, I have put a shimmy in here. Shimmy around here, drop down onto some boxes so you're at street level. Got another guard here, so you probably do some stealth action around this box. And over here we've got a very clear objective, which I will probably make into a tower or such like. And here's a super rough sketch of kind of the style that I'm going for. Took about 5 minutes to draw this. Obviously I'd expect something looking a little bit nicer from you talented youths. Okay, so back to Maya. So I want to start building some template objects here that I can start to build my block out, my traversal design. Okay, in 3D, and then we can render. Okay, so what I want to do is, I'm in modelling here. I've got my polygon shelf up here. So let's just create a, if I can actually create a box. It's not happening. Hello, hello, anybody home? So I've got no idea what it's doing. Okay, so back to Maya. So to make my lovely traversal area white box, I want to start with some basic shapes, some basic building shapes. So I just want to start by making a cube. So let's just have a look at how big that is. So I want it to be about 3 meters by 3 meters. So most commercial buildings are built in modular blocks of 3 meters or so, I am told again. So let's just go back to that old trick of getting the pivot reset. So if I hold down, go to rotate and hold down D with my snaps are not on, so let's undo that and turn the snaps on. So D, and then let's just snap that over to the corner. And then let's have a look, is that actually snapped it to the corner? Yes. So let's get this into place on the grid so we know what we're doing, because at the minute it's off grid. Let's press space to get up different windows. So I think I've just done something weird. So panels, I think you can frame, yeah, so F frames the object, I believe. So it's not on the grid here. Let's have a look. Let's just move that onto the grid there. So it's not on the grid here, so let's move it onto the grid here. So this is fitting now within the grid points, which will make it a lot easier to snap into the areas we want within Unreal. So let's just have a look at the front view. So yeah, we're snapped onto the 0 in the X, and that's all good. So let's go back to our perspective. Right, so what I want to do with this is that so we're going to be having windows in these blocks that the player can climb through. So I am thinking to myself that I'm going to start subdividing this. Let's have a go at 4 on each. So we can make windows from this section. Okay, let's give that a go. So I well, let's start by, if I go to Edge and double click here, then I can start moving these, because these will be my walls. If we think about this as I'm going to, well, I'll show you. So I'll shut up for a moment and get on with it, and I shall be back in a momento. So I'm double clicking here to select the edges, and then I'm just dragging out. I'll just double click, drag out. So if these are 10, so this is 20 centimeters, we've got a 20 centimeter wall. Each of these grid lines is set at 10 centimeters. So I'm thinking, unless I'm going mad, that's 20 centimeters. So we do that, and now let's have a look. So we still don't really have enough for a window in this middle section, so I might just go back and add. So you can't go back in the stack. Okay, I might have to add it a different way. So let's try, click on this one, double click on that one. Okay, so give me a moment. Okay, so basically there'll be a way to select the actual ring on the full ring on this edge. Let me go to edge mode, let me select there. So that's it, one way of doing it, but there should be some sort of tool where I can expand out and select the ring. Don't worry about that at the moment. So what I want to do here is I want to connect. So I can use an edge loop in here, but let's just use connect for a change. So if I hold, let me just work this one out. Have I got connect up on my shelf? I haven't. So if I hold Control and Shift, so hold Control Shift, and then you can add it onto your shelf. Okay, it's only tools you might be using frequently. So let me just click on here. Right. So what connect has done is it's given me a loop that's equidistant between these two subdivisions, which is quite handy because obviously it's quite hard to judge the correct metrics if you're just sticking an edge loop in. So let's do it. That's fine. Just select off that. Let me select these again. Have I got all of them? I have. So then let's go back to connect. So there we go again. And so the reason I've done that is because I want to get a shape here for a window that the character can climb through. I should really do it on this side as well, to be quite honest with you. Would have been a lot easier just to make it a poly where I subdivided it with the correct amount of subdivisions when I created it, but hey ho, such is life. So you have to select off that for it to actually accept it, it seems. Connect it again. Okay, that's fine. So yeah, that just means that I can put windows in any side. These four faces here, I can now, if I wanted to, could effectively make that into a window. I'd have to jiggle it about a bit, but also I do actually need a roof and a floor section. So again, you see, I should just have built this with more subdivisions. Stupid Andy. Okay, so I've selected everything there, so that's probably going to cause issues. Let's just get those ones. Still managed to get. Okay, let's do it properly. Okay, so now we're fine. So I'm going to do connect again, and then I'm going to go up here, and then I might as well just keep recording. Not the most exciting thing in the world, but hey ho. Back up here, then back into connect. So that's fine. So now I can grab this edge and I can move it back in again to, whoops, a daisy. I don't want the side view, I want the perspective view. Quite hard getting used to this right clicking menu system, but so double clicking on there, I managed to select the whole loop, and then I can drag that down and make it 20 centimeters width. So we've got a roof and walls all 20 centimeters. This is the block shape that I want. Right, so next up, so this will be my core piece. So I'm just going to press Ctrl D to duplicate that. I don't want to duplicate the faces, stupid Andy. I want to duplicate the object. So I'm just going to make this into my core building section, and I'm going to want the player, as we discussed when I was planning it, I'm going to want the player to be climbing into this. Actually, I'm just going to sort out this window shape, so I'll come back to you in a minute. I'm going to make this window, because from a metric point of view, if the character is 1.8 wide, I want him to vault into the, or him or her to vault into this this window shape. So realistically, a vault would probably be a little bit higher than that, probably about 1 meter. So I'm just going to fix the window shape, and then I'll show you what I've done. Okay, so I've put the windows in the kind of the correct position, and so I've just selected these top faces, and so I'm going to go to the extrude. So if I go to my modelling tools, I should put the extrude up here, really, on this menu. Is it on this menu? Can I see it? I can see it, it's there. So let's extrude this down. We're still snapping, that's good. Right, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to X-ray, which is this, so we can now see through the object. So what I want to do is I want to extrude that down. So if you notice, I'm trying to match the subdivisions, okay, and I'll show you why in a minute. So another extrude. So realistic, well, I can probably do it in perspective. Yeah, so I'm matching the subdivisions on the inside the same as the outside. So we've got a subdivision here on the inside, this edge here matches this edge here on the outside. So again, I'm trying to create a room, an interior here with walls. So I'm going to extrude again. You can do this by adding, well, let's just keep it simple for the minute. So you can add divisions up here, but I want to keep control over when I put in these subdivisions, which is why I keep pressing extrude. Okay, so yes, so now I've matched the inside edges with the outside edges. So turning off X-ray up here. So if I go to face mode, which I think I'm in anyway, press Control, press Shift to add to my selection, and then just delete those. And then if I do the same on the inside, delete those. So you can't currently see the, I want to be able to see that edge inside, so it looks like there's just, it's got back face culling is on at the minute, so I can't see the inside faces. So we need to fix that for purposes of modelling, otherwise, well, modelling environments anyway, because it'll confuse the crap out of us. So if we go to display and we go to polygons, right at the bottom we've got custom polygon display. Actually, let me see if I can Control Shift that. Control Shift, it didn't work. Okay, let's try it again. Polygons, custom polygon display. No, it's not having it. Okay, so polygons, custom polygon display. I'm just trying trying to get this onto my shelf. I'll work that out in a minute. So at the minute we have got, we don't want to see the item numbers, we want to see border edges, vertices, display normals, highlight, okay, let's just try that. Okay, so that's done it. So now we can see, I just put apply and close. So I just put show holes basically, and I clicked on border edges, I think was the important part. So it's now showing the, I've turned back face culling off, I think. And then apply and close. Okay, but the main thing is I can now see inside that model. So what we want to do here is we want to go to edge, excuse me, and then my computer monitor has just turned off, it's come back on again. So basically edgewise, just again select both of those, and then we can bridge it. I'm going to press the Windows key, it's all gone crazy, and there it is again. I keep pressing the Windows key, get off. That's okay, so that bridge. Right, I've managed to move my finger away from the Windows key cleverly. Okay, bridge. Okay, so yeah, basically I've now bridged the faces, so we've kind of got a window ledge that you can vault over. So I'll just do the same on here. I mean, realistically I could just cut these faces out and then spin it around confusingly. I could just cut these faces out and copy these faces and paste them in here. So I'm going to do either that, or I'm going to repeat the procedure to make a window here. Back in a minute. Okay, so now I've got a nice little, what the Americans may call a block, or realistically it's just a modular component that you would kind of, if this was concrete, it would be used in construction to start snapping together to make a skyscraper. So looking at my super crap map, we want to start him on the rooftop, and then we want to jump moving to a window he climbs through, he or she climbs through. And now I can't get hold of that. Okay, so basically I'm just going to start over here, so I'm going to Control D that. It's telling me there's no object to duplicate, so let's go to object mode, so Control D that, and I'm going to just start it. So let's start it over here in this corner. I could just use, I don't need this many subdivisions if we're just starting the player on top of it, but it's useful in case you do want to actually start adjusting some of the geometry. You know, if I did actually want to dig in some handholds onto this, it means now that I have subdivisions where I can start extruding in. It's just helpful in the long term to have objects that are subdivided to a decent amount. So let me just get this snapped onto there. That snaps onto the top. So this is our player start position. Let's assume this is a rooftop, and then I'm just going to start building and snapping things together, and I'll just snap together some blocks and then get back to you in a moment. So I'm just placing this block here for the jump, and as I said, 2 meters is kind of a decent jump width. You'd want to check this in your game engine, so in this case you will want to check it in Unreal. But what I'm going to do is, assuming that we have got 2 meter width roads, which I mean is something like the Shambles in York or medieval London, you know, you're going to have much narrower, and at the top the buildings tend to bend in, but that's something that can be designed in later depending on your concept art, or you know, the mood you want to get for your levels. So I'm just doing a kind of super rough white box. So as I was saying, 2 meters. Let's make a box. I seem to. Okay, so let's just check the. Keep that 10 high. So that's 2 meters wide, height 10 and depth. Okay, so we've got a nice kind of road chunk there which we can then use, and again I just want to make sure that's on the grid. I don't want to be messing anything up by just press 5 there. I don't want to be messing anything up if it's not on the grid. So that isn't on the grid. Oh, it is on the grid. Yep, it's on the grid in the top view. I'm just checking the corner here. So again, actually I do want to adjust the pivot on that, so let's get the pivot adjusted. There we go. And then let's go to our front view and check it in the front view. It's on the ground level line. Yep. So I can then just kind of get that over here, and what I'll do is just move it into place there, press space to get that maximized. So then we know we've got 2 meters there, so you know we can then measure the jump when we take it into Unreal, and if that jump doesn't work, which at this stage you probably will be checking that in engine to see if it feels okay, because obviously if that doesn't feel okay, then you're going to be designing your entire map around something that doesn't feel okay. I'm going to say okay for the 15th time. And on that note, I shall pop off now and continue to populate this area. Okay, so now we're getting somewhere. We've got the player character can run. Don't worry about this seam, that'll disappear, I hope, when we render. Obviously, viewport isn't quite as high resolution as, well, isn't anywhere near as high the resolution as it would be when you're rendering, so these minor discrepancies are okay in the actual viewport. So you run along here, badoing, jump across there, so you know that you get the player into this area, presuming you don't want to create player death in the at the very start of your game. So for instance, you don't want the player to fall off either side of here and die, so you probably corral them in with some high walls. So you know that the player's got to learn how to jump at the start of your game to get across this gap, so you've gated them. And then again, we just want to check that they know how to vault or to mantle, get into this area, so they come out of, the only way out in this room is to come out, you could probably put a chest, as I said before, in there. They need to come out of here. So as you can see, if they come out of here and then drop into a hang, there's nowhere for them to go. So considering this, looking at this as a kind of a tutorial level, what I'd probably do is I would probably just learn to press that button, it would be good. So let's go to extrude. So we just want a little ledge, so let's make that 20. So this would be the kind of you drop out and then you would shimmy along, not shimmy, you would wall walk or edge walk along here. So at this point you would have to drop down and then, well, let me have a look. So let me just have a think about this. So I'm just thinking here that you basically, let's make this ledge a little bit bigger. I just pulled it instead of extruding it. I'll show you what I mean. So if we get the ledge out to about there, it means that I want to teach them the shimmy at the same time as I'm teaching them the edge crawl. So I'm just going to make this a normal ledge, and then we're going to get them into a shimmy around here. So I will need to get rid of these faces. I'll show you what I mean in a moment. Okay, so I was just having a little bit of a think here. So you can't really get them doing a you can't combine vaulting out of this window with a with an edge or wall walk, because it's going to confuse the player and confuse the animations. If he's coming, or the player is coming out of here and then going straight into pressing straight into the wall, it'll cause issues with regards the animation knowing what it's supposed to do. So you want to go into an edge walk here, which is fine. So he's pressed up, he or she is pressed up against the wall here and here, and then I was just trying to work that out. So we want to get an extrude of these faces. So if I find my extrude, then I want to make sure that they can comfortably stand on this section. So edge walk here, and then they're going to step out onto this section where they'll be able to comfortably stand. And what I want them to do here is I want to get them dropping. Well, in fact, let's move that out slightly more. I want to get them dropping here, and then having been forced to shimmy around to grab hold of a gap here, pull themselves up onto a shelf. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to place, I'm going to put an edge loop in. That is my edge loop, okay. So yeah, that's snapping. So we've got a 10 centimeter thick edge loop placed in there. So what I want them to do is, because you can see that they're going to be hanging from here by the fingertips, I want to come around here and edge their way along this gap here. So what I'm going to want to do is extrude these faces in. This is going to be slightly problematic as we've got 20 centimeters on the inside of this wall. We've got another set of faces. So what I'm going to do is go to face, and then I'm going to press there and there. It says, you know, level design is very much kind of making it up as you go along and finding the most fun parts. So if you think it's going to be fun when you're playing it, or it feels fun when you're building it, it's usually going to be fun when you're playing it. So if I just put that in 10 centimeters, so we've still got 10 centimeter thickness between this edge here and the inside wall, and they can shimmy along here. So I'm just thinking how we would deal with this. So we might have to extrude these out again. Let's see what happens if I try and extrude both of these out at once. Okay. So that's okay. So really they're going to have to pull themselves up onto this. Again, shimmy, 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 shimmy around here, pull yourself up, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a zip line up here. Okay, so they'll need to jump for the zip line, which will take them. So this could be a statue, or not a statue, a sculpture of a gargoyle, for instance, that they could clamber up onto. Okay, so I've just duplicated the player just so I can get the height and put them on this small corner ledge. Not actually on it. Naughty player. Okay, so they're on it now. So I wanted to put in a zip line. So a direct straight up jump usually is, well, let's say if you're jumping straight up a meter, that's quite a long way. So I mean, just from the perspective of me looking at that distance there, that's probably about right to jump onto for a zip line. So what I'm going to quickly do is I'm going to copy my floor over to here to get the width between these buildings. Well, actually what I'll do is, just for the purposes of this exercise, so if I grab hold of that face and then I extrude, so this time I probably am going to want to put in, let's say, 5 divisions, and then just drag that out. And so what I'm going to want to do is then I can then move this end face, as you can see. So I'm going to basically grab hold of one of these, move it back into object mode or UV mode if you're pressing the wrong button. So Control D that, W, move it. So let's just Control D that, move it. So I'm just getting the width of the road again there, so we're keeping the metrics sensible. And then well, to be honest with you, I mean the zip line's not going to be much use going just across here, so we're probably going to want to make that a double road width. So we can make, you know, this doesn't have to be a road, this could be a river, for instance, because then you get some type of jeopardy, although in my original design we had a guard patrolling across here. So well, it could be a courtyard, this type of thing. So what I want to do is, if I Control D that and bring that up, and then I just want to make my zip line meet up with the building. So let me just grab the end face. Well, quickest way to do that would be for me to go to face and then go. In fact, it already had the end face selected. Just match up that angle. Okay. Yeah, so we're going to need some form of landing spot. So now the player is going to be directly above these guards. I'm going to put the guards in next. So in hindsight, you know, one of the things you have to do is you have to adapt as you're designing. So realistically, I would have wanted to get, with regards to zipline, I would have wanted to get the player up much higher, because I mean this is kind of your normal angle, somewhere in the vicinity of 30 degrees for your zipline. And with the height of the player, they're going to be hitting the top of the building here. So I've got a choice here of making a lower building which brings them quite close to the guards, which is kind of okay, or you know, the other choice I have is that I make the courtyard even bigger, which is exposing the player, which is probably the best bet, to make this into a proper courtyard, so the player feels like they're completely exposed, but in a way kind of a feeling of power as they're swinging over the heads of the guards below. So let's just keep the metrics sensible. So let's just move that over here. So I mean, if we're continuing at this angle, so let's just, I should really extrude again here, but I'm just seeing so if we just put X-ray mode on, so they're going to be landing about here basically. So I need a building that's like 1.5 meters high. So 1.5 meters off the ground is basically the enemy head height is going to be above that. So let's think about ways to fix that. I'll just put that in place. Okay, so the solution has kind of presented itself in the fact that I've just gone up to display, turn the grid off. So if we look at the layout of most medieval cities, then there's vast, huge variations in height levels between streets. You know, so for instance, in Edinburgh, the medieval city section of Edinburgh, you have streets with tenements that drop away at the back. So realistically, we can keep the street level at this level here and then drop it away down here, so it also has a bit of authenticity, so it's kind of sorted itself out. So you've got, and this also adds a bit of jeopardy when you're hanging along here, so you know at this stage you're learning mechanics, or you're learning your moveset, but we've also got added jeopardy. It's probably best not to kill the player if they fell down there, but the guard might chase them and drop them in it. Ideally, if you fell down there and you survived and the guard was chasing you, you'd want to find somewhere, you want to route the player back around here, up onto here again, so they have to repeat the process without dying. So effectively they would have to keep repeating it until they've learnt it. Tedious for the player, but means that we don't get them into any new areas they're not supposed to be in, and they have to relearn the mechanics until they're comfortable with them. So let's have a look at this. Let's just drag that face out. My favourite, it's extrude. Yes, you guessed it. Let's just drag that up there. Actually, that's the wrong one. Let's just get that one. Let's turn that off. Select that one. Let's go to extrude, and that's just your normal stopper. There's probably actually. So I've made a. I'm going to undo that. So I've made a half height building here, sorry, modular section here. So, but if I'm looking at that, you know, this character is 1.8 high, so I'm going to realistically, I'm going to have to face, Andy, face. we realistically have to, let's just drag that up. Yeah, so that's a better stopper really. Let's just get hold of this face. Get hold of that object, get hold of that face, and let's just drag that across. Okay, so I'm going to just build around this to make this work, because obviously you need a clear drop off point here. I need to extend this out a bit. But just a quick note, well, in fact I'll show you in a minute. Okay, so you know, part of traversal is to some degree hiding the route from the player. You don't want to hide it in an irritating way. You want to give them you want to signpost the route either with lights or textures. You know, so if I wanted the player to climb up here, I could put some vine textures on here. I think that if we're assuming this is kind of a stealth game, then you've got a direct line of sight if the player crashes into this, falls down. So you could put some crates on here maybe, so just to kind of give the impression of some type of barrier here, which would probably go to the artist, and they would completely change it into something that was usually quite irritating. So let me just extrude that. Oh, sorry, what I mean by that is that sometimes you'll give things to artists, and so I mean realistically, if I wanted that to be crates, I'll just, for instance, extrude that up just to give the artist the idea this might be a crate. But sometimes you'll give things to artists, and you know, for instance, this is supposed to be a blocker, so the line of sight from the enemy to the player is not clear. As this is a kind of training area, but sometimes the artist will get hold of this and it come back and it'll be railings, so you always need to make sure that you're having an ongoing conversation with your artist. Let me just extend this up and then we'll move on to the next part. So we've got a little barrier built in here so the player can zip line down here, drop off, hey ho. I mean, it could be a little tutorial here for stealth, but it's going to be slightly problematic because the guard is going to have to do some Assassin's Creed style climbing to get up to you, or have a raised weapon, so it's a bit of a complicated introductory stealth scenario because you're not on the same level as the guard. So so next up, you want to get over this barrier, so I would suggest that in this case I might want to just get them jumping and shimmying again. So let's just look at the heights we've got, so Control D. You know, it doesn't have to be perfect, but if you're working to metrics, it's good to kind of keep the same rules. So to jump and shimmy here, let's just put in an edge loop. So remember, I've added this to my shelf by holding down Control and Shift and then dragging it across. So let me just snap that to the grid. Yeah, so what I'm going to do here is I am going to go to face mode or UV shell, depending on how chunky your fingers are. So this is actually a new move that I've decided to invent on the spot, but it's actually quite commonplace. Let me just see what happens if I extrude that in. So this could cause chaos, cause a little bit of chaos at this corner here, but for the purposes of the white box it's okay. So again, I've extruded that in 10 so that we're not impacting on the inside wall, although this isn't an open top section. So the player would jump up here from a standing jump. I mean, you could put a box down here and force them to get on the box, or you could even push a box, which is a common kind of low level and tedious puzzle mechanic. Push a box over here, climb on it, jump up here. So let's assume the player can jump up to this, shimmy around here, shimmy around the corner, which is the new mechanic I've introduced, which I think you probably all recognise from things like well, Tomb Raider and Assassin's Creed, because it's quite easy. It's quite a good traversal mechanic to be able to, you're hiding. I want to put a ledge in here so you can hide this ledge because the player has to go around the corner. So this again is kind of a little way of hiding the route from the player. So I'm just going to extrude these out. So I want them to get around to this corner here and then drop down to here, and then probably, well, let's just give them a decent ledge here to walk across. And then what I want to do is on my little diagram, so we've got across to this bit there, shimming across here. Obviously I've adjusted this slightly with the zip line, and then I want to get him onto a balance beam, one last edge down to the ground level, and then running across this area here. So what I'm going to do is give them a balance beam here. So let's just grab hold of this first, extrude that. So again, I probably want to give that. Subdividing is your friend. So I'm just going to basically put the ledges in. There's going to be nothing new I'm doing really here, other than I'm just going to be repeating processes I've utilised around these existing sections, and I'm going to build this up and then probably put another larger tower over here so the player can see it clearly as an objective across the rooftops, and I shall get back to you in a memento. Okay, so I've just put in, just done all the boring work of just corralling the player into an area and just filling out all the gaps. But basically, what happens is there's not 37 different player characters in the level. I've just put these in to give you some reference. So down the zip line, drop off, kind of possibly crouch or use this wall here to block you from the line of sight of this patrolling enemy, who will be patrolling backwards and forwards along this line. Let me show you in object mode. So he'll be patrolling backwards and forwards like this. So as a player, then, you using your brain box, you jump up, grab hold of this little indent here, come around the corner, drop onto this ledge. Again, you are going to be probably wanting to be a bit careful, and there's a feeling of jeopardy because this dude here is walking right underneath you. Probably his line of sight isn't going to be able to spot you because you're kind of pressed up against the wall, so that's okay. And then you get to the edge here, do your balance beam walk here again. So now you've got a double jeopardy because you've also got the classic two-way patrol route where they kind of cross over. This one's going this way, that one's going that way, and you have to kind of weave your way in between them. So walk along here. So maybe this guy has got a ranged attack, so he's got an arrow or such like that can shoot you off this beam here. But I mean, realistically, this may be the first time you've encountered the balance beam. I'm kind of the one where you have to use a 6-axis to control falling off, to actually attempt to balance yourself as you walk across here. Get across here, drop off onto this rooftop. So you're using your crouch here to conceal yourself from nasty man down here. So then you sneak through this tiny gap here, drop down onto ground level for the first time. It's going to be terrifying, so you need to time it in a way that you can. So I've just made this 1 meter by 1 meter crate. So if he's patrolling down here, you're going to want to probably get a crate over here. So drop down here, come around the back of this crate. Let's duplicate that, and then he will patrol up to this crate so he can't see you when you're behind here. When he starts walking back down there, run across to this crate. Okay, at this point you'll be absolutely terrified. So wide open spot here, so you need to watch this dude's line of sight isn't catching you as you run between this one and this one. At the same time, he's going to need to be walking, well, he could either be there or he could be there facing that way, or he could be there facing that way, but either way, run across when this dude isn't looking. So you've got kind of, this is your first scenario where you've got double line of sight possibilities, which means you've got a slight difficulty curve. And then this is your objective. I'm too lazy to build a door, but let me just quickly show you. So I'm talking about the door being here. So that would be the door. So you'd walk into here, that would be your objective, and the reason I'm saying that's your objective is because I've made that the highest object on the level. That's always a good way of working things. So as you start from here, you can see it and you go, well, hey, I need to get up there, even if the entrance to it is actually concealed until you get around here. But yeah, so that's kind of a very basic level. So the next step would be to render this out and just kind of probably from a couple of angles to get our critical path drawn in Photoshop. Okay, so rendering this out, we're going to be Maya now ships with Arnold as the default renderer. It's nothing you need to worry about because you'll be learning Arnold. So this is your render button. So if we click on this, you'll note that you can't see anything, which isn't the ideal scenario when you're new to Maya. So what we want to do is, if we go to the Arnold shelf, we can drop in. This is all quite confusing, don't worry about it, we'll go through this in detail. This is just to get out a render out of it. So create is, so I've gone to Arnold, well in fact sorry, I've gone to the Arnold shelf, and I go to create sky dome light. Creates this weird thing. So this doesn't render in scene, but the thing that it does do is that if I press render again, which is IPR render here, okay, so this time it's worked. Okay, so that's your basic Arnold render. So we can then take that out to a modeling package and we can start to create our critical path. Obviously you're going to need a couple of renders. The interesting thing is that, let's just do that again. So we can save this out. Okay, so we can save that out, but at the same time you'll note that if you rotate your viewport, so if you've got two windows, let me just move that out of the way. So if I want to get a back view of this, so I'm just moving this around. The reason it's chugging and going mad is because I've got my render window open up here. So you're rendering in real time basically as you move your viewport around. Yeah. So I will close that off. So if you're not getting a render, this is the thing over here, is the fact you need to adjust your exposure and your intensity. Okay, if your exposure is at 0 and you're not getting anything, move your exposure up, which is the kind of the distance that it's rendering at. But that's okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a couple of renders out of this, and then I'll take it into Photoshop for the final part of the tutorial, and I will then put in the critical path and some of the events that happen on this level. So if I just, let me just so I'm just trying to turn that off. So display, hide, selection. So if you actually look at this this level, it's not a million miles away from my original horrible sketch. So you know, we work our way through the tower, work our way across to this rooftop. We then do a balance beam walk across here to the edge. So I've just made some minor adjustments, but it's all pretty much laid out the same as my diagram, except for the fact you need to always iterate as you are developing anything. You're going to have to adjust on the fly. There's no way your initial sketch is going to work out well. Sometimes it does work out perfectly, but that's very rare. So always, that's one of the joys of level design, is you have to iterate on the fly. Okay, so I shall get a couple of renders and then I'll probably just post them up and talk about them in the class. Okay.